Hello, hello, and welcome to PitchZone, a weekly live show on YouTube where we help presenters put their best foot forward, plan and prepare to get on stage or in front of the camera with confidence and communicate your message with passion. I have a very special guest today because usually Nathan Gold is my co host, but today he's actually going to be my featured guest. So, Nathan, hello and welcome to Pitch Zone.
Thank you. It feels fun to be here as a guest instead of the MC for a change.
It is, isn't it? Yes. And I'm very, very delighted to have you because whenever I think of speaking anxiety, you are the person that comes to my mind the very first, right? And it's probably related to a little book that you wrote, the Harness Your Speaking Anxiety, which is a great, great small little book, but the size doesn't do justice to the content. So, really, real pleasure having you here. And before we start, let's quickly say hello to our viewers here online. We have only a few viewers at this time. We have Ahmed. Ahmed, great to see you, and thanks for letting us know what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I'm absolutely convinced you will get a lot of value here today from this show. And we have Rick Pollack from Boston, Massachusetts, as almost every week. Rick, I hope you're having a great, great time in Boston. We have Anthony Nassar, who joined us in Pitch Zone a couple episodes ago, sharing a lot of great, great tips and advice on financial management. We have Debbie Kruschik from somewhere in the States. I don't even know where Debbie lives or is located, but Debbie, always great to see your name here. And then
Mm.
Massimo Peroncelli, also almost every week here in the comments with us. Massimo, great, great pleasure to see you. And Yash just joined us from India. Yash, real great, great pleasure to have you here and welcome back. All right. So Nathan and I, we were talking a little bit before, and I asked him because, I'm always so tremendously nervous. My anxiety goes through the roof every Thursday at 9:15 or 10 or whenever this show. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Luckily, I found ways to overcome my own speaking anxiety. But believe it or not, I've been one of these people that suffered with speaking anxiety when I was really young, weeks before an event. As soon as I knew, okay, I'll have to go and I'll have to give a presentation to 200 people. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now, Nathan, you have been coaching people like me for the last 15 years, and this is one of the things we spend the most time on. So tell me, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I have a presentation and it's still 4 or 5 weeks out, but I already have sleepless nights. My pulse is going faster. My heartbeat is racing just at the mere thought of it. What do you do?
Yes, that is one of the most common questions I get from people all of the time. And the good news is that they are feeling those nerves. Because if you're not feeling nervous, whatever they are, the good type of nervous, that childlike anticipation versus that debilitating kind of nervous where you lose sleep and you can't think and you bump into walls kind of nervousness. So, what I tell people normally is, a lot of it is related to how much time you have between when you get the notice that you'll be on stage and when you get there. But it really has everything to do with preparation. You need to prepare for literally as many different outcomes as you can expect when it comes to whatever that end goal is. But in getting there, there's a very simple thing that we all can do. It's called breathing, literally breathing. When we get nervous about anything, I've learned from medical doctors that what we're doing is what they call clavicle breathing,
Hmm.
very high up in the chest. And
Hmm.
that's not good for our brains because we're not getting enough oxygen. So the first thing that I tell people to do is start learning what people do in situations a lot worse than you're in when you're thinking about walking up on a stage, such as military, police, fire, first responders, that they can't have a coach next to them to say, hey, calm down, take a few breaths, do this, sit down, breathe in a bag, or whatever they tell them to do. So for any of you listening, the just Google box breathing, tactical breathing, or combat breathing. They're all very, very similar. It doesn't cost you anything to do it, and you can use it anytime you need it. It
Hmm.
depends on the severity of your heart racing or your palms getting sweaty, your face perspiring. There's different levels of that nervousness. For me, these days, and pretty much most of my career, my nervousness, and I get nervous all of the time, even before this session here today. 15 minutes ago, my hands started sweating. Why? I know my life. You're not going to probably ask me a question that, well, maybe I don't know. And if I do, I'll say I don't know if I don't know. But it's that anticipation, it's that childlike anticipation that I have and many people do. The ones that go up in front of people that use their energy and nervousness as a way to engage or transmit the love, the passion, or the enthusiasm that they have for their topic to the ears of their audience. And that
Hmm.
those nerves can be used in your favor, or they can be very debilitating
Hmm.
and cause a fight, flight, or freeze moment on stage.
Absolutely. And this is what I love about your book, because the title already says harness your speaking anxiety. It doesn't say eradicate it, kill it, or whatever. You have the mindset that this is energy that we can harness and we can use it in the right way. Now, before we continue, let me quickly ask the audience that's with us here today, do you have speaking anxiety? Just write yes or no in the comments, even if it's just a little bit. When you prepare or you know that you will have to go and speak in public, is there something happening inside of you that you would classify as anxiety? And while you do that, um, we have Nathan's book today, and we are going to give away 3 copies of it, right? We're going to give
Real one.
away 3 copies, signed copies. So this is a rare, rare thing. So some answers are coming in here. Massimo says, yes, he has yet another anxiety
Mhm.
type, and maybe he's still typing and to let us know what that is.
Second
Uh,
language.
yeah. Um, we have Anthony, yes. Debbie, yes. Yash, yes. Rick Pollack, yes. And that is so amazing. To me, not surprising, but I think perhaps to some people, because if you know Rick, you know he is cool as a cucumber. He is always so calm and collected, it's like unbelievable. And he is a presentation coach. He coaches TEDx speakers, he coaches engineers to go on the big stages to give keynotes. Yet Rick himself still has a level of speaking anxiety. So, yes, we all, in some sense, do have some speaking anxiety. For some, it can be devastating to the point where they want to disappear on stage. I'm going to show you something in just a moment, something very, very powerful. However, we are not going to give these books away at the end of the program. We are going to give one away in a few minutes. We are going to give one away in the middle of the show and one at the end. So, if you would like a copy of Nathan's book, Harness Your Speaking Anxiety, please in the comment write I want. That way I can put you on our wheel here that will then decide who is going to be the lucky winner. So please, if you want a copy of Nathan's book, now is the time to write in the comments, I want, and or yes, or anything along that line, and I'll get you onto that list. Now, I was talking about wanting to disappear from the stage, and there's an example, a moment where somebody rather famous actually was exactly in that situation. So without going into a big explanation, let me show you that clip. It's about a minute long, and then we'll take it from there.
And what I try to do is, as a director, I try to. The type is all off. Sorry, but I'll just wing. We'll wing it right now. I try to take people on an emotional ride, and
The curve? How does it? How do you think it's going to impact how viewers experience your movies?
excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Michael Bay for joining us.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow, indeed. Michael Bay, world famous producer. He is responsible for the Transformers series. Anybody who's ever been in the cinema probably knows the name Michael Bay. Certainly a person you would think wouldn't freeze up in front of a couple of journalists at a Samsung press event. Yet it did happen. Nathan, your take on why did it happen and what could Michael have done differently so that this wouldn't happen?
Yeah. That is one of the most unfortunate things probably that's ever happened in his life in public, because it's out there. And I've been using that as an example for quite a while. And I'm pretty sure he hates me because we talk about it all the time. But it's a perfect example of how any of us, can walk out on a stage and forget everything going on in our thinking brains. It's like he couldn't even get a thought together. Why? Well, he had no backup plan. That's the main reason. He had no backup plan. The MC tried to help him. The teleprompter that he probably didn't read very much, maybe he read it on the way over in the taxi that day, but the teleprompter is what you didn't show. It's okay, but the teleprompter broke. It went down. And so, too bad. The MC said, "Oh, well, Michael, let's just wing it." And Michael said, "Okay, let's wing it." But if you notice and go back and watch it again online, you'll see that Michael decided, I'm going to go back to the script. And he tried to pull the script out of his head, and it didn't work. And he got right to that end of that second line, and he said, "Uh-oh, I don't know what to say now." And his brain went into that freeze moment for just a moment, and then he went flight and decided, I'm getting the heck out of here. And why did it happen? Because he had no backup plan, and he went to the wrong place. He tried to go back to the plan A. It screwed up. So the MC said, "Michael, just wing it. How would your movies look on this curved TV?" That was the first curved TV the world had ever seen in public. And he walks off the stage. Oh my God. But it can happen to any of us. You must have a plan B. Must. And what he didn't do was take control of his breathing at that moment. He just stopped breathing. You could almost see his body go into a.
Mhm.
And now he has no breath. The non-scientific thing that happened to him is the amygdala is in the back of his, those ancient fight or flight, protect yourself at all costs kind of brain, part of your brain, that in order for that to work really well, and again, anybody who understands the brain is going to kick me in the butt for saying this because it's not exactly accurate, but when that kicks in, like you saw Michael go, uh-oh, The thinking brain temporarily is not available. It's like, I got to protect myself, so I got to. If you had to think about a building falling down on you and decide whether to move or not, many of us would be dead. So that part of our brain is really helpful. What he didn't do, though, was get his senses back. And I can
Mhm.
identify with this. Do you mind if I share a story on along these lines? Because I had one of these moments in my life.
Is that a rhetorical question, Nathan?
No. So I had one of these moments in my life. It was the most scary thing I've ever experienced. I was invited to come to the Kaufman Foundation in Kansas City to be filmed for a video series that they wanted to put me on their founder's school. So I said, okay, fine. They said, bring 2 suits, bring some ties, bring some shirts. Okay, fine. I show up. They take me over to the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts. I thought, okay, all right. They'll put me in a little side room on the side there, and I'm with a camera and a guy or other people there to film me. And I hear all this noise. And I'm walking down the hallway, and the person who picked me up said, you go in there. In there, that's where all the noise is. Why is it? I walk in this room, Claudio, I never saw anything like it in my entire career. This is the stage where famous people walk. And they said, Nathan, oh, Nathan's here. Hang on, everybody. And everybody was like 30 people. 30 people were there. They brought in a full television production studio, 2 camera dollies on tracks, a whole setup with 15 monitors. This was like blowing my mind. Like, what did I get into here? And they said, okay, quiet down, the talent's here. What are they talking about? And it was me. Nathan, could you come on up here on the stage for just a minute? We need you to stand on the X, and then you can go off with Sharon, and she'll take care of you until we need you for filming. Okay. So I walk up on the X, and I have my jacket on. I have a blue shirt on. I could feel myself having a Michael Bay moment. Literally. I am starting to sweat. I forgot my first line. I'm thinking, okay, what if I was filmed right now? What would I say? I couldn't even come up with my first line. I was so freaked out. I was turning white. My blue shirt turned a very dark blue shirt. And I think that Sharon could see I was about to fall over. And she grabbed my arm and walked me out to the hallway and said, Nathan, you got to sit down. You look like you're going to faint. And I said, you're right. I feel like I'm going to faint. And I was not breathing, and I was doing all the wrong things. This was about 14 years ago. So she sat me down. She said, close your eyes for a minute. And guess what she did? She took me through tactical breathing for about 2 minutes. At the end of that 2 minutes, I was like, okay, I know where I am again. I know what I need to do. I'm not going anywhere. But if she wasn't there, I got to tell you, Claudio, I might have gone to the men's room and then made some lame ass excuse that I am not feeling well and I cannot perform today because I didn't have a way to get my senses back, and my nerves literally gave me that fight or flight moment. And that had never
Mhm.
happened before that. I'd never been in a situation that caused that much speaking
Mhm.
anxiety. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like I didn't know my topic. I didn't even have a script. I just had slides like you and I normally do. I go up there, I do my thing, and they filmed me, and then they do all the
Mhm.
editing and everything. So I had nothing to worry about. It. I was prepared with the content. It was more like, oh my God, this is so unreal. No different than if any of us walked out on a TED stage where in the front Bill
Mhm.
Gates, Warren Buffett, and Al Gore are sitting in the front row. We're all going to feel nervous. Thanks for letting me
Thank
share
you.
that. That
Yeah,
was
thank
fun.
you so much for sharing that story because again, you are also one of these people that we know you from our screens, we know you from presentations, and the thought that you would suffer in that way wouldn't even cross our mind. Now, here is the interesting thing. There wasn't even an audience there, which just shows you that all of this stuff is happening between our ears. It's a construct that we are doing. And I'm going to get back to that in just a moment. But we promised the book. So
Oh,
let's
yeah.
quickly go to the book. And I have here my little wheel of names prepared. We have 6 people right now. Check whether your name is on there. I hope it is. If not, oh well, oh well. So let me just shuffle the names a little bit just to make sure everything is correct here. And then we are going to spin the wheel. And the first winner we have is Massimo.
All right.
Massimo, excellent. Congratulations. I know where you live. We'll get that book to you after this immediately. Your name now is removed. We have 2 more of these moments here prepared. We will get back to it very, very soon again. But in the meantime, let's get back to that fictitious problem that we are causing ourselves, right? So before you were talking about tactical breathing and so on, and these are great, great tips and certainly help once you are in that moment where you're starting to freak out, right? However, I think the problem starts way, way earlier. Like I mentioned before, for me, it was sometimes 3 weeks before. As soon as I knew I have to speak, and I cannot just go around for the next 3 weeks doing tactical breathing. So I absolutely had to figure out what exactly am I doing in my noodle here that causes these kind of sensations. And today, when I work with clients, I usually ask them, the first question that I ask, if somebody approaches me and says, can you help me with my speaking anxiety, is I ask them and say, imagine you are taking a vacation from yourself, right? You're gonna go somewhere on a beautiful, exotic island somewhere, and I have to step in for you. And I have to go and give that presentation that you are so afraid of. What exactly do I have to do in my mind, in my system, to get to that point? Because we all do it differently. And the answers I hear are sometimes very, very humorous, right? People tell me, well, I imagine an audience out there and all of their heads, they are so big and their eyes are looking at me and I'm like, wow, yeah, of course. If I would do that in my head, I would be scared too, right? So, what are your kind of tips, Nathan, to prepare people and help them to clean up their own internal world a little bit in the days and weeks leading up to it so that the moment on stage, you're absolutely minimizing that these things, like with Michael Bay, can happen?
Yes. Well, I certainly don't do it to the level you just described in terms of what goes on in our minds. I probably should do that more often. And I really like the way you just asked that question because it tells you exactly, or at least partially, what's going on in their heads and it makes it easier to deal with it. So, what I usually do to get people, like, depending on the amount of time they have to prepare, is to break down what they're doing into manageable parts when they're designing what they want to say in that time, and then break it down to learn it in pieces as well. And that seems to help people deal with their nerves along the way as they're preparing. And then, based on the fact that I'm holding their feet to the fire and making sure that each and every part of whatever they're going to be saying is very nicely polished and flows nicely, because, we all have those parts in a talk that we might have. When we get to it, it's a little bit of friction. And so whenever that happens and they get nervous about that part of the talk or the presentation or the pitch, my general suggestion in the weeks leading up is, if that's the part of the pitch, and I know I'm being very specific on
Mhm.
the content, but when you have the content all down, then I think it's a little bit easier to handle what's going on up here because people are so focused on the content. However, in that same breath, I'm saying to myself, that was a dumb statement, because they could do both at the same time. Like if they took
Mm.
your type of coaching and start managing what you're saying to yourself and what's going on upstairs and what you're imagining visually, auditorily, and everything else, that would go even a longer way than what I'm just doing, which is relying on being as prepared as possible. Because I do find that people tend to spend most of their time on the content, on the what they want to say, and they don't leave enough time for the performance aspects of it, or the ability to say it out loud enough where now you're going up on stage and it's the fifth time you're doing it versus the first time you're doing it in public. And I also
Mhm.
get people to put milestones along the way where they can actually present to somebody other than me. Because you get comfortable with me over the third, fourth, fifth meeting, as you know, you get comfortable with the coach and they let you do this or that. And that's part of coaching. So
Mhm.
then if I get people to put some, like once a week, find some new people you can present to, even if it's a TED talk, even, and you're not supposed to go outside to tell, but you can practice parts of it. That goes a long way to reducing their stress because of the practice and the dry runs that they get beforehand. But thank you
Mhm.
for inspiring me. Yeah, after all these years, I've heard you say that before, and it never quite clicked that if I understand easily what they're visualizing, what they're saying to themselves, it can help a lot. So wonderful
It
thing to pass
It
to the.
it absolutely is because again we are all different, right? And we all went through life. We made experiences that shaped us, and some of us were really unfortunate in younger years, right? In my book, I have a very small section on speaking anxiety, and I blame our school system for it,
Mm,
right? Because if you think about it, when does the teacher pull you up in front of the class? It's usually not a pleasant moment, right? It's something that is either embarrassment inducing or it's to scold you or whatever, but we associate these negative and bad feelings sometimes very, very early on in our lives, right? And one of the things that I ask people as well is, are there any voices in your head? And that's the amazing thing. You wouldn't believe how often people tell me, well, now that I'm actually focusing on it, yes. And I say, who is it? My teacher, my
uh,
mother, my father,
oh,
my
yeah.
sister, my brother, right? But it's people around us that are going like, don't make a fool of yourself. Don't make a fool of yourself. And we are running this program inside of our head. And the only thing that I usually do is say, change the voice. Who's your favorite actress? Change it to
Mm.
that voice in her most sensual way of communicating. And you see them melting away and go like, ooh, that's actually nice. It's just so cool. So cool. I love my job. Now, we have two more books to give away, Nathan. Let's
Hey,
go back
good.
to our wheel quickly and spin it again. I hope everybody is still here. Where is the button to spin? Here we go. Let's shuffle it 1, 2, 3 more times and spin the thing.
All right. There we go. All the
Ah,
way.
Yash. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yash,
And
we're
we'll
moving
send
on
it.
from the next round. Please, Yash, get me your mailing address because this is an actual physical book that we are going to send out. Nathan is sending it to you from San Francisco all the way to India with his John Hancock in it. So very, very cool. Uh-huh. So, Nathan,
Yes.
more tips, because
Okay.
our audience is really, really thirsty, right? And maybe
Okay.
I can lead it a little bit because I want to um, um, bring up the the topic of focus. I often find that when people struggle and really have strong, strong anxiety, they're typically focusing on the wrong thing. They're
Hmm.
focusing either on themselves. How do I look? Is my hair correct? Is everything all right? Or they're focusing on their message. What should they be who or what should they be focusing on instead?
Yes. Leading question. If you're prepared, and I'll assume for this moment that you've done everything you can up to that moment, then you're focused on the wrong thing. It's not about you anymore at that time. And really, it never was in the first place. It's about the audience, it's not about
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Mm-hmm.
if you focus yourself and your energies on the audience and why you're there for them, what can they learn from you? What can they take away from you? What can you learn from your audience? It's not always about them learning from you. Sometimes as a speaker, you say some things and somebody asks you a question, and now you've learned something from the audience as well, depending on the situation. So when your audience knows you're there for them, that's the unfair advantage to having a more engaging time as a speaker with your audience. When they know that you are in this room virtually or physically, and you're there for me, and you're not there to pound your chest and tell me all about the great stuff that you've done, that goes a really long way to helping you focus on what I would call the right things in a presentation, pitch, communication.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get out of the way. You're the guide. You're not the hero in this whole situation in most cases.
Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And Patrick just joined us. I'm not sure when he joined up, but Patrick, so glad to have you here. And you just took me down a trip on memory lane that's more than 3 decades, 35, 40 years maybe. I don't know exactly when that training took place, but Patrick and I, we were very, very fortunate to work in a company in the 80s that they didn't save any money when it came to training. And we were really, really fortunate and privileged to get some tremendous training, including, of course, sales training, because that's what we were doing. And Patrick just reminded me of this one training with this guy called Kazor, and this guy taught us a mantra, and I am absolutely with you, Patrick. That mantra stayed with me the entire life. And I still today follow it to a tooth, and that is embarrass yourself daily.
I love it.
This was the best advice that I have ever received. And luckily, it was really, really early on in my career,
Mm.
because the way that he put it was, look, if you embarrass yourself every day and you're working 200, 220 days a year, in 5 years, that's a whole lot of embarrassment. All of a sudden, your skin will grow so thick, nothing can really rattle you, nothing can shake you. And I absolutely agree. So, yeah, make it a habit to embarrass yourself. And with each embarrassment, you see your skin growing just a tiny little bit thicker. Thank you so
Mm.
much for that reminder, Patrick. Very, very cool. Now we have about another 10 minutes on the clock here. So why don't we
Okay.
go and give away the third book? And I have added
All right.
Patrick to our list here as well. So we have a little bit more names, and let's see if and who will get this one.
All right.
And
No,
yes, it is
Ahmed.
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 At the last moment, it just moved over to that one. Ahmed, congratulations. Same thing here. Get me your address. I believe we are connected on LinkedIn. Yeah, you all know where to find me. So send me your address, and I'll make sure that these books are going out to you later today or tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Nathan,
Yes, sir.
what has been your most embarrassing moment on
Uh,
a stage or in front of a camera?
uh,
Oh,
hmm. Okay. All
don't
right.
hold back. Don't hold
I
back. We
won't.
want we
No.
want the real juicy stuff, you know?
This is one of those that probably is what you could call potentially the most embarrassing time in my life on stage. And it happened about 7 years ago when I was invited to do a 15-minute talk in Omaha, Nebraska for this thing called Big Omaha. It was like a TEDx kind of event, but a local and around just there. So Kaufman Foundation gave me their 15 minutes because they couldn't find somebody else to take the 15 minutes. So I said, what the heck? I'll go up there. I'll take the 15 minutes. And there were about 700 people in the room, a pretty big audience. Most of my audiences tend to be around the 100, 150, but this was a pretty big audience. Not that that scares me, but it was a big audience. They had somebody on the side there doing the drawing for what I was saying on stage, like they did for every speaker. So I get up there on stage, boom, right out to my mark. I am having one of the best talks, the best times of my life. The people are smiling. They're having a good time. I even got 2 people to laugh in the room. And I'm getting to the close. And I have 3 minutes on the clock. And I'm looking over and I see it was very strict, just like on TED stages. And I get to my close. And it's a close that I have used all the time, which we can use today. I'll demonstrate exactly what happened. So in closing, people always ask me, how do you deal with your nerves on stage? Perfect topic for what we're talking about, right? And then I said, so here are the 3 things that I suggest people do so that they can get more control over their nerves when they're on stage. Number 1, take control of your breathing. Blah, blah, blah. Combat bleed, blah, blah, blah. Sit down. Make sure somebody's there. Don't fall over. Number 2, number 3 is, and I told them what number 3 is. And of course, as soon as number 3 came out of my mouth, it was like, oh, of course. I mean, I had said it probably 500 times by then. So how do you forget something like that, right? It happens to all of us. It was not a fight, flight, freeze moment, but it was like are you kidding me? Where is it? Where is it? And I couldn't find it. So I just went on, which is what I would tell somebody on stage to do. Just move on. And if it doesn't come back, so what? If it does, then it came back. So number 2, by the way, just so everybody knows, is take control of your posture. Make sure that you're standing tall so that your body works better. Or if you're sitting, make a good posture so your body can breathe properly. And then number 3, by the way, which is the fun one, it comes from psychology. It's actually called a mood inducer, to have a fancy name. And that is, I play music in my head. And when that music starts, it drowns out everything. To your point earlier about how do you drown out the noise, the self-talk, the bad or the good self-talk. I play music in my head. And I chose the Rocky theme from the first Rocky film, because when I listen to that music, it completely lights me up. It gets me more confident than ever. I get goosebumps on my arms and the back of my neck, and I am ready. I'm like, as soon as I hit my mark, it's like I'm at the top of the stairs doing this. I'm not at the bottom of the stairs needing 30 seconds to warm up in front of my audience. I mean, people that say, oh, I just need 30 seconds in front of my audience. No, you do not. That's an excuse. You're going to get hit and knocked down to the mat in your first 30 seconds if you don't get out there, and metaphorically speaking. And that's it. Breathing, posture, music. That music is personal. Put it on and it will completely change how you feel.
I love it. I love it because it once again is a clear demonstration that it's all about the focus. What do you focus your mind on, right? And it's so easy to drift off into this worst case scenario of I'm going to embarrass myself, I'm going to make a fool out of myself. And seriously, one of the best things you can do is give yourself a jolt and say, what else can I focus on? Number 1, the audience. Number 2, play something inside of your mind. And if you do not have this ability to play a rock concert inside of your mind, get some headphones, take out your phone and put these headphones in and let it rip, right? I mean, it's really all about where do you focus your mind, because wherever you focus your mind, this is where your energy will go. And if you focus your mind on the audience, your energy will go to the audience. If you focus your mind on what can go wrong, well, guess what? Guess what?
Hey, there's
All
one more
right.
thing I want to add
Yeah.
to that, if you don't mind. There were about 6 people in the room that knew me very well. And when I was done and I walked off stage at the break, every one of them came over to me and said, "Nathan, you didn't forget number 2 up there, did you?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, I really did." And I'm sure they still to this day don't believe I really forgot it, but they said it was magical. You handled it like a pro.
And this is so beautiful. The message, the core message in this is so beautiful because we always think when we mess up, it's the end of the world.
Oh,
But your audience doesn't even know what you wanted to say. So they're not going to miss it. They're not sitting there with your script in their hands and
no.
taking notes and go like, oops, he just missed a sentence here. Not at all. They have no clue. So you could have turned that number 3 into number 2. And hopefully then by the time you get to the end of that, number 2 would have come to your mind. And then you
Yeah.
go to number 3. All right. So before we wrap up, we have 3 lucky winners today. We have Massimo, Ahmed, and Yash. We have a few more viewers. And of course, we don't want you to walk away here empty-handed. So we cannot send out all of the books, but you can get the ebook, the PDF version of Nathan's book, Harness Your Speaking Anxiety, by scanning this code here or go to his website, democoach.com/freebook, and you can grab your own copy in electronic format to enjoy on your Kindle or whatever ebook reader, iPad, or anything you may be using. All right,
And
Nathan, and
the only request I have is just to know that I didn't really write the book to sell the book and make money. I got it out as a way to help. So if you like anything you read in the book, my only request is give it away to 1 or 2 other people that you know might benefit from it. Just give them a link to the PDF, and that would be a great help to them and maybe me one day.
Beautiful, beautiful. And again, as we saw in the very beginning, when I asked who has speaking anxiety, there was not one no. Everybody in some form and some degree does have a certain level of speaking anxiety. So you definitely are not alone if you feel that, hey, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I get it together on stage? Not at all. Some very, very famous people, absolutely famous people, including Ronald Reagan, who made a living out of public speaking, had tremendous speaking anxiety. Ringo Starr, whenever he had to go on stage, he was, you know, to the point of
Mhm.
getting physically sick before
Mhm.
going out there. So I hope that our conversation here today helped you at least in some small way to understand that this is something that you can harness. It's not something you need to eradicate. It's not something that you need to kill. It's a positive energy. Like one of my first rhetoric teachers 40 years ago uh, made exactly that point as well, right? So with that, we reached the end of the program here for today. Nathan, thanks a lot. Like every week, always a great, great pleasure. Thanks to everyone who joined us here. Debbie, thanks so much for adding our books to your session. And by the way, if you are not familiar with Debbie's website, it's techedin.com. If you look really, really closely on her little icon there, you see techedin with CK and .com. Go check it out. Much appreciated, Debbie. And of course, everybody else who made this session engaging for us as well. Thanks a million. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are in the world. And we shall see each other again next week. Bye-bye.